All right, great. So we'll kick it off here. Thanks everyone for joining us here today. Just as a heads up for those in the audience, we will be recording this here today, and we'll make it more broadly available. So don't feel like you have to take too many notes here today. As you can see here on the screen, this is the New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association's first webinar of a series that we're calling the Business Builder Series. And this one in particular is focused on recruiting and retaining talent in the cannabis industry. As we were talking about among the panelists here a little bit earlier before we went live, New Jersey's been in this interesting history over the last couple of years where there's obviously been so much of an emphasis from the non-licensed holders on the application process and winning applications. And here we are, and we have 44 new medical license holders in the queue that were approved about a year ago who are preparing to open up their doors. Sarah Trent being among them, and then also a booming adult use marketplace with I think it's 505 total conditional license holders issued as of last Friday, right? So I think the goal of this Business Builder series is to kind of focus on that next steps for those medical and adult use license holders, and to give the benefit of the background and experience of the New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association's member organizations about how to navigate these issues, certainly in real time. For anyone who doesn't know, we have a little background here, a little snippet about who the New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association is. It was founded in 2020 and is comprised of the state's permitted medical and adult use cannabis operators. So I think that's just one distinction we draw here, where there's obviously a lot of trade associations in New Jersey, that welcome members who are interested in cannabis. The goal and objective of the trade association is to really be the voice of the licensed operators, and our membership, again, is comprised solely of those licensed operators. So the mission of the NJCTA is to ensure that the legal cannabis marketplace is not only safe, accessible, and affordable, but also equitable and just. And to achieve this, the NJCTA strives to shape public awareness and encourage implementation of thoughtful and responsible cannabis policy. And then overall, just to be a voice for the industry. And I think that's one of the goals of this series, starting here today, to give that benefit of the experience of some of our operators. So our panelists we have here today come from three of our member organizations. The first is Sarah Trent, founder and CEO of Valley Wellness, and separately the founder and CEO of New Jersey Cannabis Certified. So as founder of Valley Wellness, which is a medical dispensary in central New Jersey, Sarah recently secured a provisional permit from the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. Valley actually received the highest scoring dispensary application in the state, all the way back from the 2019 medical round that was caught up for several years in review. And then Sarah has also created NJ Cannabis Certified, which is a one-of-a-kind cannabis education program for entry-level jobs, which has quickly risen to become one of the most reputable and trusted training programs in the industry today. Sarah is also a former public defender, having represented individuals charged with both low-level and very serious crimes. And currently, Sarah is the secretary of the New Jersey State Bar Association Cannabis Law Committee. Sarah grew up in West Windsor, New Jersey, and currently lives in Somerset County. Also, we have with us Lauren Ferguson. Lauren is the Director of Operations with Acreage Holding, an Acreage CCF, New Jersey, that is, which is the botanist located in Egg Harbor Township. Lauren was first hired in 2014 and has played a pivotal role in the expansion of the facility and its staffing throughout her career with the botanists. Lauren's also a South Jersey native and graduate of Stockton University with a master's in business administration. And then finally, we have Michael Evans, who's the Vice President of Talent Acquisition at Verano, one of the leading cannabis companies with active operations in the US. Michael has a career spanning 25 years and a robust experience recruiting high-level talent and developing organizational structures across various industries and organizations, including with IRI, Huron Consulting Group, and Whirlpool Corporations. Most recently, Michael formed Group 928, a thriving search firm delivering recruiting services to private equity companies across North America. But in his current role as Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Executive Recruiting, Michael oversees Verano's talent acquisition partners and talent search activities. Michael is also a graduate from Wheaton College with a Bachelor of Philosophy and an MBA from the University of Notre Dame. So Michael, why don't we start with you? Verano is one of the largest multi-state operators with 13 cultivation and production facilities spanning more than a million plus square feet, has 100 plus dispensaries nationally and more than 4,000 employees. You obviously have great experience with respect to employee recruitment and retention. Can you give us a sense of what your pivot to the cannabis industry has been like, given your 25 years of experience, having done it in other industries? And then just kind of associated with that question, what is the same with respect to recruitment and retention in the cannabis industry versus other industries, and what's different?
I'll preface my entry into cannabis by saying that my second day here was the day New Jersey went rec live. It was definitely a trial by fire. I was peacefully enjoying my onboarding, and that got changed up really quickly. So it was absolutely an amazing. It was an amazing few weeks. I couldn't have had a better onboarding. One of my pet peeves is, people say, well, you don't really know what it's like until you're in it. And I always sort of turn my nose up at that. And I'm like, well, it's really true. I thought I knew what it was going to be like, but it's very different, mostly to the good side. But it is very different. And we ended up hiring, I think, over 400 people in just a matter of a few weeks. And that was a big change. The part of the pivot too is part of the draw of coming here was really learning, taking tried and true principles and putting them into a totally new space. But one of the big things I saw is you can't make assumptions about this industry. Things that have typically you think would work don't necessarily work. And there's a lot of room where you actually have to try things and perfect things. So not all of the things that I've learned over the years translated perfectly here. Some didn't translate at all. Some I think is due to the industry. I'm not a big sports analogy person, but if you think of that big high school lineman who's a freshman and, they're 6'4" and they're really big and they've got a deep voice and all of that. And you think, therefore, they're more mature and they're more buttoned up, where reality is 2 weeks earlier, they were junior high students. It's a little bit like we're like. Everyone thinks we're big and we've got it all together, but we're really, really, really building it. And I think that'd be true for the industry as a whole. In terms of some things that have been the same, I would say the service level is the same. I mean, my bias is, and what I've been part of the team is a candidate is a customer. And, my background is in consumer products. And so to me, a candidate is a customer. They have a skill set that we need, and we need to treat them as such. The other thing that hasn't changed is approachability and authenticity. Those are really, really important things. So those are some things, those fundamentals that haven't changed. What has changed is the way we go about recruiting, doing hiring events and really meeting candidates where they're at. So realizing that there was a Coca-Cola executive once said, people don't buy Coke globally. They buy it locally. They engage locally. And that's very much what about recruiting is here. As much as we try to say, let's bring it nationally, at the end of the day, we're recruiting people from the communities where our stores are. So we've taken our recruiting approach and we've gone to those neighborhoods. We've made it easy for people to access us. We've done career events and hiring days on Sundays, on Saturdays. We've gone till 10 o'clock at night sometimes. We've started as early as 7 in the morning, and we've really tried some things like that. We're changing up the interviewing. You know, the old tried and true behavioral interviewing thing, that's something we've, you know, I mean, it works sometimes, but I think really it's more understanding how someone's going to react in a situation, because sometimes the folks we recruit don't really have the history that lends itself to that. Then lastly, we've moved away from the resume. And if you would have asked me, you know, a couple months ago, if I ever could have envisioned myself interviewing someone without a resume, I would have, I don't even think I would have had an answer. And here, it's just not something we've done. It's great to see when we see it, but that is a huge change. So that's,
yeah, and that's super helpful. I mean, you know, it's so funny. I mean, we'll a little later on, we'll talk a little bit about, you know, trying to, you know, really prioritize social equity in the industry, and, you know, trying to recruit those individuals from communities disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs and the like. And, you know, that resume concept, I think, you know, it's one of those areas and elements that are a barrier to entry that I think traditional industry wouldn't think about. And you know, there've been so many folks in New Jersey, and I, you know, give a shout out to, you know, Brendan Robinson at 420 NJ events, who, you know, literally had resume fairs for that reason, to help people through that. So to hear that Verano kind of understands that and is reacting to that in real time is fascinating. You know, one other question for you, Michael, before turning to Lauren. You know, obviously this is New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association. You know, kind of the goal of this, the audience of this, are those that are inside of New Jersey or looking to be hired or hire inside of New Jersey. You know, covering 14 different states, you know, across the country. Is New Jersey similar to what you're seeing in other markets? Is it different in that way, or is cannabis kind of evolving all at the same time, all in all these different markets?
One of the challenges of the market, I think, outside of those principles I outlined, where I said service and meeting folks where they're at, the differences, especially when it comes to getting folks badged and certified to work in the industry, varies. I mean, there's a separate playbook for almost every state. And so if I look at some of the common denominators, very few of them are regulatory or rules. What I do see that's very common is an enthusiasm. You know, people are really, really happy to engage. And that's pretty tremendous. And the other thing that's very common is a diversity of people, of incomes, of backgrounds. And, you know, you talk to sort of the person who's grown up or maybe had a cannabis offense. And then I've seen other people that are willing to trade in really very significant big jobs to just say, you know what, I've done that. I want to start in the industry. I want to start ground floor, and I want to become a cannabis advisor. And those are stories that really run across all of the states.
That's great. That's great. And I know, you know, again, I think for those of us, you know, in New Jersey, that common question has always been, how do I get involved in the industry? So that's super helpful to hear that even the folks who want to get involved at the employee level kind of come in all shapes and sizes. So that's fascinating. Let's turn to Lauren. So Lauren, you've been with Acreage CCF since 2014, you know, which is, you know, and I know New Jersey passed its medical law originally a couple of years earlier to that, but obviously there was a little bit of a latency there. But what did recruitment look like in New Jersey back in 2014 as compared to today? I know it's only a couple of years ago, but in cannabis years, it feels like decades.
Yeah. 2014, when I first came in, truth be told, I got the job that I had here as a dispensary agent, working the dispensary floor through word of mouth. I was going to grad school with an individual who worked here. So, you know, even though I know there were job postings, they were using job boards really in order to get into the industry. It was more just a passion, an interest. There wasn't necessarily true career pathways. So the way we see applicants coming in, you put up a job posting, you get hundreds and hundreds of applications coming in. There wasn't necessarily that drive back then. Remember, I believe there was only 5 or 6 qualifying conditions in order to be a medical patient. So the volume was slow. Between front of house and back of house, I believe there was only a staff of 15. So it was very different. And the individuals that we had working here had been here for a while. A lot of them, there was second careers for them, retirees coming in, just looking to do something because they were interested and they had a passion for the medicinal side of cannabis. So to see it evolve into what it's now, and have individuals coming in who, want to be in this industry for the long term of their career, it's a vast difference. One of the really interesting parts of being here since that time period is I did get to kind of come up with individuals who stayed the course, who have been here from the inception of the program, and see their careers evolve, and whether they started in front of house like I did, and move up into admin positions, or back of house and are now, leading cultivation teams. It's been a really, really great growth between 2014 and now. So it's very different, but it's been an enjoyable ride for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and even, you talk about folks who either have familiarity or don't have familiarity with kind of the job as a whole. I think what's interesting about Acreage CCF is obviously you guys are a vertically integrated operator. And you have cultivation operations, manufacturing operations, and 3 different dispensaries in your footprint.
Yeah.
For you, I mean, what's the greatest challenge in seeking and retaining talent across those kind of multiple silos?
Absolutely. I always say it's very interesting, and Michael kind of spoke to it, is that when you look at resumes, sometimes the individuals that are coming in, despite not having an immense amount of cannabis knowledge or any cannabis background to begin with, as a recruiter, you can kind of look at the resume and know that there's a lot of applicable skills that they have based on careers that they had previous. The hospitality industry has been a great industry to pull from, people coming from, waitressing or waitering services. A lot of people that have worked in warehouse settings before going into back of house. So it doesn't necessarily have to be cannabis specific. But you sit them down, you have an interview. One of the questions I do consistently ask is, what is your level of cannabis knowledge? And sometimes I'll see people, kind of shy away because they're nervous to say it's not extensive, but truly it's not necessarily a needed skill. What's needed is the passion and drive to be here. And we can pull skill sets from other positions that they've had in order to have a really great career here. We really pride ourselves in a lot of cross training. So, we'll have individuals that come in and start as dispensary attendants, who get very familiar with the strain knowledge, product knowledge, and then start, looking and come up to their managers or myself and say, hey, I really want to learn back of house skills. I want to learn more about cultivation. I want to learn more about processing, manufacturing. So as long as you have a touch of that knowledge, I think that you can really, sky's the limit within the industry itself. You can really take those skills wherever you land, whether it be in cultivation, manufacturing, processing, or dispensary, and, pivot yourself to a different aspect of the industry. So it's been really interesting to be able to see that flourish within people come in thinking that they want to have one skill set within the industry, but then seeing them be able to really hone in on something else and do great within another department.
And that's a great point, because I think that's relatable to most industry and most jobs, right? You go in with one expectation of what you might like, and you don't learn what you like or don't like until you start doing it. So that's super helpful. So one last question for you, Lauren, before going over to Sarah. You obviously have great familiarity with New Jersey as a marketplace, given how long you've worked with Acreage CCF. For those that are newer to the cannabis industry, including those 2021 and 2022 adult use applicants who obviously have an obligation to provide a workforce development plan and a job creation plan as part of their applications, how do you go about, or how have you gone about identifying and vetting good partners to work with in connection with employee recruitment and retention? I mean, I guess, how do you, it's a crowded marketplace, how do you find the reputable companies to work with, and what's been your experience with that?
So one of the really amazing aspects of recruiting, specifically within the past year or two, are that there are these certification programs as well as college courses coming up that are creating amazing pipelines of employees. I mean, Sarah runs one of them. So when I see the certifications on the resumes, I know that these are passionate individuals who are already doing the legwork in order to get a place within the industry. So that immediately shows the dedication that those applicants have. We've also partnered with Stockton for a lot of individuals coming out of that cannabis minor. I know other universities are following suit. So we've been able to really hone in on, professors that work there, to let us know, hey, this applicant, look out for this resume coming through. And then we've gotten a great, immense amount of talent coming through those pipelines. We've also really honed in on some of those cannabis specific career fairs. And that is a great opportunity to talk to people who are passionate about the industry, who are interested in the industry, might not have previously worked there, but really do want to come in and get a feel for what all these ATCs have to offer. So we've been partnering with a lot of different career fairs. 40 Tons was one that we just did. That was a great event. NJ Cannabis has thrown some great events as well. So there's an immense amount of recruitment tools out there that hadn't previously existed that we can use in order to bring some really great candidates into our departments here.
No, that's great. And again, one of the big things about the trade association is, I think as a whole, we're really good at being team players. And I think, kind of having that vetting process and kind of understanding those good stakeholders to partner with is such a critical aspect of the marketplace as a whole, but especially these individual businesses. So Sarah, you wear two different, albeit tremendous, hats as part of this presentation. First is as a newly approved licensed operator in the medical marketplace, and the second as the head of one of the premier cannabis employee training programs in New Jersey. So I'm gonna bisect my questions to you a little bit with that in mind. As starting off with kind of your Middle Valley Partners hat, you're one of the new license awardees. So you, like the other 43 award winners from that last medical round, waited more than 2 years between application submission and final approval. Would have been the biggest surprises to you when it came to actually preparing your provisional license for operations and seeking talented employees to do so?
Yeah, well, preparing for operations and hiring, well, two different things kind of. So I broke that down into two kind of sections here. So preparing for operations is really multifaceted. What I've been concentrating on for the past 6 months is construction. As you know, supply chain, supplies, finding contractors to do the work, all cause for potential delays. So really from a project management standpoint, the construction has been a really big deal for us, maybe more so than other new operators that might be moving into a space that is maybe a little bit more ready. Our space is not. So the construction project management, SOP writing, the commission requires an enormous amount of standard operating procedures to be submitted before they will actually give you your permit to operate. And that goes for us as a 2019 awardee. It's no different than what conditional license holders are actually doing right now, which is having to submit all of those standard operating procedures. And it'll really put those conditional license holders at a step ahead because they'll have already gotten those standard operating procedures approved and be more ready to go than we are. So In addition to that, there's marketing and advertising, right? We want our business to succeed. We're also opening as a medical only dispensary. So for us, it's building relationships with doctors that are involved in the program, and also patients, making sure that we are out there for patients. Because the majority of the rest of the state has gone to adult use, marketing is a big deal for us, because we really need to get patients in our door in order for our business to survive. And last but not least, what you were getting at, which is hiring. And to answer your question as it pertains to employees, yes, we're looking for retail employees to staff the dispensary, but really ideally, each employee brings something a little bit extra to the table. And what do I mean by that? We're going to be a very small store. I mean, we're not a micro, but because we are opening as a medical only facility, I'm not going out and hiring 20 people. We're probably going to start with a staff of around 10 or under 10. And so those employees, even if you're working as a receptionist or on the floor, bring something extra to the table, whether or not that's a little bit of marketing experience. You know how to use Canva, because that's how we do all of our Instagram posts on Canva. Maybe you know a little bit about Photoshop. Maybe you are kind of like a techie and you know about IT or something about computers and can help us with the POS if something happens. So that's what we're looking for in terms of preparing, is we've been looking for a long time for individuals that are going to be members of this, very small family, and that are going to bring little extra skill sets to the table.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a great point across the board, right? And I think our other two speakers touched on this a little bit too, which is, sometimes having those skills that are applicable to most other industries can be helpful for the startup business as a whole, right? So, and Sam, let me ask another question, just specific to your role as a license holder. Obviously, as we said earlier, there's about 500 conditional licenses in the queue. A lot more annual licenses and conversion licenses that have been submitted. It takes a long time between getting that initial approval from the CRC to actually opening your doors as a medical or adult use dispensary. Understanding how limited capital is, and you don't want to start hiring people just to have them sitting there before you have your final approval. When should dispensary owners really start preparing to actually hire people? Is it 1 month out, 2 months out? Should certain key hires be made in advance of that? Anything you could offer our listeners here?
It's a really tough question. I mean, I won't tell you that I know the answer. I can tell you what I'm doing. And it really goes back to that family-oriented business that I'm trying to establish. So I started hiring months ago, because my potential employees, we go through, I'm sure everybody does, but go through a series of interviews. So a phone interview, a Zoom interview, and then multiple in-person interviews. And sometimes it's just to chat. It's not even like I'm asking a bunch of tough questions. It's just an opportunity for that person to get to know me, and for me to get to know that individual, because we're literally going to be working together all day, every day. I'm not going to lie. I know I can be intense. So I'm pretty upfront with people when they come and sit down with me, because I don't want any surprises for them either. So to answer that question, number one, I do think for small businesses, which a lot of those conditionals are, start the interview process early, because it is really hard to find individuals. I cannot tell you how many people have not shown up for their interview and just not even called. Like, I don't know how that happens, and it may sound silly, but so you need to go through this process, 3 or 4 or 5 interviews. If the people show up that many times, then they're going to show up on the first day of the job. But I can't have somebody call out on a regular basis. So I really want to make sure that we are making job offers to people that want to work. And I say that in a way, anyways, so that's the first part of it. And then there's also the part of it, the realistic part of it, which is the payroll side. And you can't be, you can't be onboarding people without actually operating the business. And I will say, I'm still navigating this with the commission a little bit. And the trade association has been helpful in that regard. But just last week, I was having a conversation with our state monitor, and I want to begin the process of getting we have employees, I have 2 employees. I want to start the process of getting them badged so that because we do not have our final license to open our door, we cannot actually even begin the badging process. So there are, that's why I say we're going to be ready to open construction wise and facility wise on November 1st. But for me as a new operator, there are so many unknowns in navigating the rules and what I'm going to have to do to actually open our doors. So I would say interview early. From a small business perspective, we're not required to offer health insurance. And we cannot at this point. It is something that we're going to strive to do in the future, but that's another hurdle that I'm overcoming. We have to find individuals that, have other means of securing health insurance and other benefits. And we have to, make up for that in other ways with other benefits. So think about those things. And interview early and be upfront with the people that you're interviewing. It's a long process because the badging is a long process too. So, make sure that they know not to quit their job right away. Make sure that they know you're still interested in hiring them. Keep the line of communication open. I'm emailing with individuals all the time, like, we're still on track to open. I haven't forgotten about you. So they know that I'm thinking about them.
And Sarah, that's a great point too, which is, and if we contrast with the experience of being in the marketplace years ago when it was a little less competitive for these employees. Now, again, you're competing with, obviously the expanded ATCs who are expanding hiring, the 2019 winners, the adult use winners. So I think that point on communication is critical because it does take a while, and you don't want to lose those good candidates, just in that typical process. Sarah,
one other thing, Mike, I would suggest to conditional license holders, before you have your actual permit in hand to operate, before your plant touching, you can bring people on to help you. So for instance, people that we think we're going to hire, we'll go to a job fair, or we're hosting a card sign-up event and career fair. Bring them on to help with little tasks, at those events, to help man the table and see how they represent your company. And I think that that's a great way, again, for them to get to know you and vice versa.
That's a great point, Sarah. Two quick questions on NJ Cannabis Certified, and certainly we won't give NJ Cannabis Certified as much attention today as it deserves, right? Knowing that, I think one of the things that we heard from Lauren earlier is, finding those good stakeholder groups, and NJ Cannabis Certified has certainly been one of them. So 2 quick questions on NJ Cannabis Certified, though. First is, what need were you seeking to fulfill by creating this program? And 2, will the state require all cannabis business employees to undergo that type of training, whether it's with NJ Cannabis Certified or anyone else?
Yeah. So 3 years ago, 2019, I will tell you, as I was a public defender, I've been a cannabis consumer for a very long time, but had never worked in a dispensary, was getting involved in the industry. I went and took, I was 9 months pregnant. I went and took hemp staff training in Newark, New Jersey. It's like a 5-hour class. And I was like, man, this does not even begin to cover it. And then the application process for the 2019 came out, and part of that is workforce development, community engagement. And I ended up walking into Raritan Valley Community College and wanted to set up a table in the breezeway to just, you know, be out there in the public. One thing led to another. I ended up in front of the workforce development director, and they were like, this is a new emerging field, bring some programming. And so I thought about it and I said, well, you know, how am I even actually going to train my own dispensary staff? And one thing led to another. You know, a couple months delay was a 6 months delay, and then a year and multiple years. But that time actually, you know, allowed me to build out the training program for our current, you know, built for our dispensary employees. And now it's become much more than that. But really the impetus behind it was twofold. Number one, get out into the community. And number two, educate our own employees, like figure out how we were going to educate our own employees. Now, 3 years later, it's a little bit different. Stockton's program is well known. And some other community colleges are popping up with cannabis programming as well. But again, back in 2019, there was very, very little. I would go to say nothing that was New Jersey specific. And I thought, this is crazy. You shouldn't have to go to, in fact, you know, most people cannot afford to go out to Colorado or California to get that industry training. Why can't we here in New Jersey provide industry specific training? And because the cannabis industry is different in every state, I mean, the definition of cannabis is different in New Jersey than it is in Colorado, so why can't we provide that here and in a fashion that is actually going to be usable for people going into the industry? And I think that, you know, being a stakeholder, being a dispensary owner really allowed me to focus in on what makes a good dispensary employee, but more broadly than that, a good cannabis employee, a good entry-level cannabis employee. These employees don't need to have plant touching experience or really any cannabis experience. Use your own skill set that you have from whatever industry you're coming from. And what do you need to know? It's not just how to grow the plant. It's not just how to work in the manufacturing lab. You need to know a little bit about a lot of things. So New Jersey Cannabis Certified, that's how it came to be. We teach a little bit about cannabis laws, a little bit about how to grow the plant, a little bit about how to make manufactured products, about how cannabis affects you or humans, the endocannabinoid system, and then dispensary specific training. And the last part of that question, Mike, was, I'm sorry, I'm just...
And moving forward, you know, is it going to be a requirement for all employees, no matter what dispensary or cultivation manufacturing facility you're at, to have taken whether it's your program or a program like it?
So it is, but we don't know exactly how it's going to unroll. So the personal use rules and regulations, Administrative Code 1730, Section 8.1, requires all plant touching employees in the industry to obtain a cannabis business ID card. Right now in the industry, everybody who works in a plant touching capacity, Lauren, you know better than I do, has to go through a process with the state in order to get your card. And that card has to be worn on your chest at all times inside of Lauren's showing, at all times in the facility. And so it takes a while to get that card and go through the background check. Right now, there are no other requirements to getting that card other than completing your background check and getting the CRC approval. But in the future, at some date unknown, the commission will make it a requirement that those getting badged actually obtain training before obtaining their cannabis business ID card. So there's a couple of ways that New Jersey Cannabis Certified is relevant, and that is number one. Well, let me just back up. We partner with community colleges across the state in the North, South, and Central to provide this right now industry-specific training for New Jersey. We provide a certificate of completion. In the future, it seems as though the commission will approve or seek to approve third-party vendors to provide this training. So Stockton University would provide one option, New Jersey Cannabis Certified would provide another. Other community colleges are going to come on board. So it's likely that individuals could take this training ahead of time in order to prepare themselves to obtain their cannabis business ID card, and or we, New Jersey Cannabis Certified partner, are looking to partner with operators, even smaller operators in the state that are looking to provide training for their new employees. And Valley Wellness, our dispensary is actually going to be the first contract partner with New Jersey Cannabis Certified. We're going to be utilizing our own materials to train our own dispensary employees. Many of our employees actually come directly from the funnel of New Jersey Cannabis Certified. So we utilize our database when we've been broadcasting our job postings. But if we find an individual that has not taken New Jersey Cannabis Certified, then we would put that individual through. And I'm welcoming any stakeholders in the industry to reach out to us to partner. I am really an open book and open to suggestions and all partnerships and what that may look like or how that may benefit other stakeholders as well.
Yeah, and that raises a great point too, which is, license holders, big or small, can reach out to Sarah, about scholarships or otherwise. I know New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association has sponsored several scholarships over the last couple of years. So, certainly something to pay attention to for folks who are, certainly either looking to tap into that pipeline or have good training for their own organization. So thank you for that, Sarah. I'll open this up to everyone. Obviously the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission, the state of New Jersey as a whole, has placed justifiably an emphasis on seeking to hire those with either formerly disqualifying convictions, whether they were cannabis convictions or otherwise, and also hiring those individuals from either impact zones or disproportionately impacted areas. But those communities in New Jersey that certainly were hardest hit by the over-policing of the war on drugs and the cannabis prohibition era. Michael, I know you touched on some of these points of kind of meeting applicants where they are, but in a regular day-to-day sense, how do you go about ensuring that your hiring protocols reflect that prioritization for looking for those candidates? And I'll open that up to anyone.
Yeah, I think just for us so far, and again, this is an unfolding narrative, right? We're learning, we're trying, we're doing things just like anyone else, but it does start with where we recruit, and that is we recruit in an accessible spot in the communities that we're looking to pull from, and not just to because it's a candidate pool, but because it's the right place to be there, it's the right place to engage, and so forth. I think one of the things that we do go through is we certainly are very, very open to folks with a cannabis conviction or whatnot. So we do partner with expungement clinic, to do expungement events and things of that nature. But still, I think it's very, very important that if we're going to be able to bring people in with an offense or a prior offense, that we're able to, we still have to get folks through the background check, right? And that is the one challenge we always have is, it's less, okay, we have an issue with bringing folks in with that, and more, okay, we can help with an expungement, but we're still going to have to get them through the background check. And that's a challenge we have. And I would guess my industry colleagues here would have a similar situation. So we can absolutely meet the people where they're at, and that is no problem. And we can do things like, forget the resume and all of that. We can help with life skills. We can help with all of those things. We also did the 40-ton event, which was a tremendous event, and our diversity, equity, inclusion specialist, Sam Padro, was actually on a panel at that event, and that was just a wonderful thing. But the reality is we still have to, again, get them through to the badging process.
Sarah or Lauren? Yeah, Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Michael was saying, it's I think that where you're recruiting is paramount to making sure that you're prioritizing those applicants. We recently did our own recruiting event at the Stockton's Atlantic City campus, and we saw a lot of individuals coming from impact zones in Atlantic City and Pleasantville, just accessibility to get to that location. So we were able to pull some fantastic candidates who, you know, qualify under those impact and economically disadvantaged areas. You know, one of the things that we're doing here is working with our own internal recruiting software to make sure that resumes that are within those geographic regions that qualify as impact and economically disadvantaged areas are getting prioritized to the top of the candidate pool, so that we can, you know, see their resumes. The badging process is still an issue, you know, and I would love to speak more on that, as I think that as we get, as the program expands, we might get more direction there. But you know, right now we're you know, still able to get those background checks and work with our regulators to see, you know, what we can move forward with and what we can't. But making sure we're prioritizing those individuals as they're coming in is paramount to how we move forward with recruiting here.
That's great. Thanks, Lauren. Sarah, anything?
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. I think targeting areas for targeting underserved areas for career fairs, it's hard for people to get to where the interview might be. And after work. So doing a career fair on a Saturday in the evening, after people have left their job, it's hard. Like, you're in Egg Harbor, Lauren, and I know where the botanist is. It's a difficult place for some to get to. It's, you know, us a little bit less so. There is public transportation available over by us. But I think going into those communities and making yourself available is the way to bring in underserved populations, make sure that they know about the opportunities and have the ability to even apply.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that, and that is a big thing, because that was a big change from, you know, coming from the lofty world of executive recruiting to what we're doing now. And realizing that people can just step out and they can take the time, and many folks are coming from industries they can't do that. They can't take that time. We're going to be asking them to step back from a wage and to take time off, and we very quickly realized that was just, well, it was just a ridiculous idea that we have that expectation. And so it really meant that we needed to recalibrate and understand who our candidate is. And so we play around with that from the standpoint of we never do interviews generally at our facilities. We usually we pick a venue. I will say we have tried community centers, and then sometimes when we get set up there, community center says, say, we don't really want to do the cannabis thing, but we have developed a network of friendly places for us to do events. And again, to Sarah, you hit on it, is we will generally do two days. We'll do one where we'll go, say, 7 to 4, and then we'll do another one where we'll do 11 to 8 or even 9. And the idea is if people are doing shift work, they've got a chance to either come in before or after that shift. You know, so those are, it's really taken it, I think, all too common when I talk with my peers who do hiring events in other industries, and it was very clear to me that it was all about them and when it's convenient for the recruiter to interview. And I'm like, first of all, relationship building is never convenient. It doesn't matter, and recruiting is an inherently convenient thing. So again, going back to our candidates as customers, it's you go where they are.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I think the fascinating thing from all your comments is, you know, I thinking deliberately, recruiting deliberately, right? Thinking about, hey, these are our goals. Are we hitting our goals? If we're not hitting our goals, where do we think the gaps are? And it just sounds like from the 3 of your experiences, it's breaking that down piece by piece, right? Focusing on the shift work, focusing on public transportation, focusing on prioritization in resumes. It sounds like it's what I'll say is a lot more dynamic, right? You need to kind of adjust that process in real time and continue to assess whether you're meeting those goals. So that's super helpful. Just in the interest of time, because I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I want to ask one last question, but if we could just go to the next slide, I want to make sure that everyone has certainly the contact information for the trade association. There we go. So you can follow us on social media for industry updates and news on our next event. You have our Twitter handle there, as well as our LinkedIn account there. You know, but again, feel free to reach out to any of us. I think the one thing that you'll find about the New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association is, you know, we're a collection of folks who have been through this, have been through some of the headaches of this process, through some of the learning curves, and part of this industry is helping one another obviously succeed or get past some of these speed bumps or hurdles. Let me ask one last question, just in the interest of time. You know, obviously adult use, Michael, as you indicated earlier, adult use is still relatively young in New Jersey. To this point, other than the conditional license holders, all of the adult use license holders are kind of hybrid license holders, both medicinal and adult use. So for Verano and Acreage, who have converted to that hybrid model, and to Sarah, who may convert in the future, has adult use changed the way you recruit? Do you recruit specifically or deliberately for medical cannabis applicants or adult use cannabis applicants, or is there really not much of a distinction or difference there?
If I think we were talking about this a little earlier, if we look at some states, and this is about New Jersey, some states it makes it very difficult to do that. Although New Jersey, we really haven't changed our approach. Because we're looking for, and I think Sarah and Lauren both highlighted some of the commonalities we have, and it is an openness to learning, a reliability to be on time, and able to work in a fast pace, strong collaboration. And those are the things we look for, and a sense of service and customer service. You know, we don't time people when they're at the check-in. If they have questions, they have questions, and we're going to keep working with those questions. And so we look for people who we can teach and who can learn and can see in others how to move people through. But yeah, it has not changed our recruiting in New Jersey. We still look for the same things, which is really a consultative person. And let's face it, whether you're I would say one other thing to add to that, if I look at the people coming to us, and this has really been an amazing thing for me because I didn't expect it. I would say, and this is just an off the cuff number, but I use it often. I would say well over 60% of the people that come to our events have a very profound medical related story, whether it's a family member, whether it's themselves, whether it's a veteran through PTSD, treating for PTSD. So I think that in many cases, yes, you get the happy, love the industry, rec lover candidate, but the vast majority of people that we talk with have got some life experiences, very personal, very deep, that really allow them the depth and the breadth and the ability to talk with you know, with folks. But we don't seek them out particularly, but we find them frequently.
Lauren or Sarah?
I agree with Michael's sentiment there. You know, I don't think that the recruiting has necessarily changed fundamentally. Again, going back to the question you initially asked about 2014, I think really the candidate may have adjusted a bit only because they really see a career path here. And perhaps the passion has always been there for, you know, cannabis and in whether it be a medicinal sense or even the recreational use, or just being passionate about growing the plant or being part of a team here. But they come in knowing that, hey, this could be my lifelong career now. And I'm dedicated to being here. So it's really, it makes recruiting fun to sit there and have those conversations with individuals coming in, you know, and regardless of age, you know, we recruit people all the time that this is a second career and they want to come in and start anew because they've just had a passion for it. The volume may have changed for sure, the volume of the work, but the candidate and what we're looking for in the candidate still remains the same. It's a passion for being here. It's a dedication to being here. And it's wanting to be part of the team.
Without to repeat what they all said, because what Michael and Lauren both said, because that's 100% accurate. You know, what I found very, I'm going to make mistakes. I've never run a dispensary before. Our employees are going to make mistakes. I'm looking for people that can like take a joke a little bit, not really, but you know, that aren't going to lose their cool when something, you know, when something goes wrong, because it's going to go wrong. And so I say that, like, can you take a little bit of a joke, and are you going to roll with the punches, and are you going to be part of the team? That all said, we're working in a highly regulated industry. So are you going to man up to your mistakes, right? And be a responsible team player. So that's, no, nothing has changed for me in my hiring between now and moving forward and trying to convert in the next couple months. I'm really looking for family members, like I've said repeatedly, that are going to be with us for a long time, that are going to grow with us. So yeah.
No, so it's super helpful. And I think, you know, one of the things that, you know, I've certainly anecdotally heard is even though folks may be on the adult use line, they may be buying it for medicinal or holistic purposes. I think sometimes the concept of recreational is a misnomer when people are purchasing it to help go to sleep or to manage the stress of the day, whatever it is. So, you know, I think, you know, the two marketplaces, and they will continue to coexist, but, you know, I think there's certainly people in the adult use side who are seeking that out for medicinal reasons anyway. Well, look, I know we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank all the panelists here today for joining us. I mean, I think hearing your experience, the depth of it in New Jersey or nationally as a whole has been enlightening for me. And as I said at the top of the hour, we will make this recording available. This is the first of what we hope to be many presentations in the Business Builder series. And thanks everyone for coming out and joining us today. So thanks everyone.
Much, Mike, for organizing this. Great time today.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Well.
All right.